So without further ado, we will start then with our first presentation, which deals with the project management and the project management issues, the learning programs that we implement at SASSETA. Waida Musa will take us through the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again. Thank you for taking the time out to be here. I hope the session will be fruitful for both you and SASSETA. And I'll just take you through the first presentation for the day. The first presentation is about project management and implementation in our organization. You all should have active projects with SASSETA at the moment, or you might have applied for projects, so this will assist you when you do get the projects or while you are managing your projects with us. So in our presentation, what we're going to look at is the purpose of this event today, or the capacity session, as well as the project implementation part of it. So in terms of what we are, or what we intend to do with the capacity session, is to inform you and advise you on how you should submit documentation. The purpose of the SASSETA Learning Programs Department, we are the core division of the SETA, where we implement learning programs through various interventions like skills programs, learnerships, artisan programs, those type of programs that we implement to curb the skills development shortages in our country. And it's also to bridge the gap for the skills that's currently happening in our economy. So in terms of our awards, when we award a grant, we submit the award to you, and then you would accept the award. So when you're accepting an award, so after we've done evaluation, approval, and we've given you an award letter, we'd expect you to accept the award within the time frame that's set out in the award letter. You should accept the letters in writing on your company letterhead and state what you're accepting. So in detail, if we're giving you an award letter for 10 employed learners on a skills program, the acceptance should come in that format to say that you're accepting this type of award for this cost and all of that. After you've accepted, you would need to attach a delegation of authority to this. So the delegation of authority must be for the person who is going to be signing off on the discretionary grant contract. So what we do is when we're doing our checks, we would check the delegation matches the person who's actually signed the contract for our internal control purposes. So your delegation of authority doesn't have to be renewed all the time. You don't have to date it as at that date when you were awarded. Because remember, the delegation can be valid for a period of time, so it can be the same director or the same person that's signing the contracts for multiple years. So if there's no changes, then you'll attach the same delegation of authority. We would allow that. So only in a case, like I'm saying, if you do change the delegation, that's when you would actually inform us, and then you will give us a new delegation of authority. Remember, since you are running projects with us, at any point in time, if there's a change of ownership or change of delegation, you can inform us during the project life cycle. So you don't have to wait until we give you an award or wait until the person has changed. Signing of the contract. So what will happen when we've awarded, you've accepted, we would draft a contract and send to you for your review. So during the review process, I urge you to look at all clauses that's on the contract. Make sure that it's not going against what your company policies or rules are. So obviously, with the public sector, I know we do have legal vetting departments that vet the contracts. In terms of the public sector, you do read your contracts, I'm sure, and then you do make input as well. So I urge you during the project inception meetings, you raise all your concerns in terms of what clauses are in the contract and what you feel that's not going to work for you. You can't agree on milestones or deliverables if you know it's unreasonable or unrealistic. You have to make sure that whatever you put on the contract is something that you'll be able to deliver upon. So what we do is we have a contract review meeting, which I did explain, a project inception meeting. So this meeting is where you would discuss all these issues. It either can be done virtually or physically, where both you and the SASSETA representative would be present, and you would make all your amendments. So in this meeting, we advise that all issues should be resolved before you proceed to sign off on the contract. The contract will be signed, and then we would provide you with a copy of the contracts for the duration of the program, so you have that in place. So when you're managing the project, you understand what is expected of you at what times, and you do have that in place. At this point also, the staff will also send you templates that you will be requiring during the project life cycle. So these templates include your work-based learner agreements, which is for the learners, your SPO1s or your bursary documents. We will go in detail in my next presentation with regards to the forms. So this is what documentation you need. Also, you need a learner list. So before the project starts, you would ideally have a list of learners. Sorry. If you are training for a government department, for example, if you're a private provider, you would actually get the listing from the government department, so that needs to be in place. So we try to coordinate as much as possible, so where we have all parties at the contract signing meeting or the inception meeting where we discuss how the learners will be recruited and how it will be in the project. But if you are the security provider and you have been awarded the grant, you would have already known who's your learners. You would have a list of beneficiaries. So we would advise that you have your list of beneficiaries at hand when we actually award. So that would make the project life cycle be able to be implemented within that time frames. We also require a project plan. The project plan can be on the SASSETA project plan template, which we do provide to you. There's a training plan also that you can do on the employer provider. They use their own template in this regard. So you would have your training schedule, how you would actually roll out the training, so you put that on your template. Attendance registers will be required during the period. So if it's work integrated learning programs, then you need to have registers or attendance registers for various learners in that time. So we will give you a template if you don't have one. But most of the time we want you to use our attendance registers. I think for certain programs like your artisan programs and stuff, the attendance registers are different. Same with your learnerships, because we are the letterhead of the company and on their template. But we would accept those. Monthly reports for internships, that's very important. There is a monthly report, attendance report that you would actually sign and attach to each attendance register. What we find there is that the signatures are somehow missing from the mentor, so make sure that everything is populated when you send on these templates. So understand the template, so you're able to complete it properly. The bank forms for the learners is very important if we are paying the stipends directly to the learners. It is very important, so we don't pay people that we're not supposed to pay, or it goes into a wrong account, so it's rejected by our bank, so that causes delays also. We've got induction video link. The induction video, I will explain later about induction, but with the link, it's only where necessary. We try to avoid the induction link because we want to be present at the induction, so all the learners at that time understand what's expected of them for the program. Terminations and replacements. I will also go in detail later on more slides and on the next presentation. But termination forms and replacement forms will be sent to you. Project status reports, project closeout reports, your final status report, and your exit interviews. So exit interviews are used for your will programs, so that's where we've required. Okay, with regard to induction of learners, so it's very important that all the learners are properly inducted before they start any program. Learners need to understand what is their role in that program, how long the program is going to take, what's the benefits to them. The employers also need to know what this entails for them, what's required of them during that process, as well as the training provider if there's one involved. So we advise strongly that SASSETA must be present at the induction, at least for most of it, because we do have limited staff as well, limited resources, but we try as best as possible to be present at the inductions. So only where it's not possible for us to be at the induction, or we would advise the employer who has previously had projects with us and know and understand the process, we'd allow them to do that. Alternatively, if the person is absent, some of the learners are not present for the induction, we'd allow the person that was in the previous inductions to induct them and send us a report. You would notice that induction report is a key document in our initiation payment process in the first phase. So that is a crucial document. During the induction, we would verify the learners. So we verify learners by looking at the IDs and making sure that learner details actually correspond to that on the learner list. So we advise that that would be the best way to verify them and to see that that's the actual person that we're going to be funding during the program. So we advise them to bring their ID documents on the day. So the induction can be done physically or virtually. Since COVID, we did also have a lot of online inductions where we've done through Teams. So that is also acceptable, as long as there is an attendance register attached to that induction, and the report will be done by the practitioner or the admin that actually conducted it. So we advise also that all stakeholder representatives, like I've mentioned before, be present at the induction so they understand what their duties are during this period. The induction report is produced either by SASSETA or the company itself, whoever did the induction. And like I mentioned, it is a key document in the milestone payment. In terms of the induction process, what's included is just an overview of the SETA, what we do, what the program is, who's responsible for what, and the time frames and all of that will be explained to them. So if they're doing a learnership, we'll explain this is how many credits it is, this is what you will get at the end. You'll get a certificate of completion, or you'll get in terms of learnerships, in terms of internships, you'll get a certificate of your term in that company under an internship, and that will be your workplace experience that you've gained. Okay, we have project monitoring. So project monitoring is very important as well. Just like inductions are important, when we monitor the project, we find a lot of issues during the monitoring phase. Those issues are raised either internally, so the monitoring is done either by the projects department, the learning programs department, or it's done by our MER department, which is our evaluation and reporting department. So they are independent reports. So what we say is that there should be 2 reports from either one of the parties. But if you find that learning programs contacted you and we want to have a site visit for the monitoring, and then you find MER also contacted you for a site visit, the reason for that is because both reports are independent. They are doing their review in terms of the holistic view of our projects, and we are doing our project monitoring for that life cycle for that project. So if you find it's too close to each other, you'd rather call us and tell us, listen, MER is coming there today, can you push yours out a little bit further? Then we can do that. But MER needs to do theirs because they are independent. They would report on this to our MANCOs and our other chambers. So the monitoring can be done physically or telephonically. So we can, if we've got maybe a WIL program, it's for 24 months, we won't come to your office every month or every 2 months. We would obviously schedule every quarter or every half year, and then we'll have telephonic ones in between. So just to give you an idea of that. So during that monitoring, you must make sure the learners are available and available to speak to us. In cases where they have the workplace element in there, we need to understand that the learners must be in that workplaces for us to be able to reach out to them and get proper feedback from them, especially if it's a site visit. We find it difficult to get to the workplaces or to find the learners at the workplaces. So it's best that you understand. I think with our monitoring, we do inform you at least a few days before or whatever the case may be, so you are informed of that. And the reason why we don't interfere with the MER process, because we have been said to have communicated their dates with you, so you prepare well for the monitoring. So we want to avoid those such allegations and make sure that we are doing the monitoring independent of theirs, and they are able to do their job as well. So we would normally, if there is any learners change in details of any sort, you need to let us know of the changes. So project meetings, what we do have is project meetings with the project coordinators at the moment, where they would contact you every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks via telephone, via meeting request, or whatever the case may be, where they'd be checking project statuses. So that's our other sort of monitoring that we would do. We do capacity building sessions like these, which we encourage people to actually attend. And we advise that any issues and concerns you have in the projects are raised immediately, so you don't have to wait until your next milestone payment or until your next meeting with us. So therefore, we've given you details of the contact people. We will share the presentations after this session, so you have the details of the contact people. I can also put in all our email addresses for the various departments and their practitioners at least, so you have their details and contacts, so you can call them at any time. In terms of contracts as well, we have extensions and amendments. We try to avoid as much as possible extensions and amendments. Therefore, I say the project implementation meeting is key for you to address most of your issues that you can iron out at that point. So we don't get to a point where we have to amend contracts willy-nilly. We don't want to extend contracts for further periods that we should have made accommodation for it during that project inception. Because at the project inception, you would know that, okay, I'm going to be 4 months delayed because of my recruitment process. So put it in the contract that recruitment for you will take this period, your actual start date will be then. So it avoids all these problems and unnecessary issues that we have where we have to write memos and get extensions, approvals. It's a whole lot of internal paperwork and externally for you as well, because you're sitting with a contract that's going to expire, you don't know what's going to happen to the learners. And we don't want to put the learners in such situations where we don't have a valid contract with you. So it's best to do that in time. So contracts will be extended, like we say, at the sole discretion of SASSETA. So it depends on what the reason is. So when you need to send a letter of request to request the extension, stating your reasons for the extension. This must be done at least 3 months, we say, before that period, so it accommodates us in terms of getting the paperwork done, the necessary approvals internally, signing of the addendums, so that will give us sufficient time to do so. So each case will obviously be on its own merit, so I can't give you 5 extensions for a project that takes 3 months. That makes no sense. And remember, we have a commitment register and we fund projects yearly. So if we have a learnership for that's 1 year duration, you can't expect it to be on our commitment for 4 years. It needs to move out of that commitment and be to award new projects. So from that aspect, don't try not to avoid extending projects unnecessarily. So, like I said, should the extension be approved, there will be an addendum process. The addendum process will be similar to the contract process. So you'll actually read the clause that have been amended and then sign off and continue. Okay, I did mention also communication lines. We will give you proper communication lines after this as well when we're sending the presentation, so you have details of that. I'd urge you to please use this process when you are escalating any issue. Don't wait for it. So only when you have any issues or complaints, use the similar process. If you send to your administrator, your project administrator, give that person 3 days to respond. If they don't respond in that 3 days, you escalate to the next level. So we want you to use this process. So for us to actually be able to improve, we need to know where the areas of concern is. If you don't tell us, we won't know. So if you can please use this escalation process and allow 3 days between escalations, so we can address all these concerns for you. And also this workshop also is for us to also discuss some of your concerns you have, but I think we'll allow for questions. Okay, this is my presentation, the first one, where we spoke about the project management issues. If there's any concerns, questions, I can take them now before I flag my next presentation.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I just want to raise the issue pertaining to the issues of extensions of contracts. I think the biggest problem that we have is towards the end of the closure of contracts or projects. Because some SASSETAs, I think the countries will be service SASSETA and tech SASSETA in many instances. It takes many years for them to produce certificates, and we cannot close projects whilst we're still waiting for certificates to come in. I think that's the challenge that I've seen for some years now, that we cannot close projects because service providers are waiting for certificates from those SASSETAs. I think if maybe from your side you can try to engage the SASSETAs to fast track the issue in order for us to close the projects. Thank you.
Performance plan where we are supposed to report every year, entering programs as well as completing programs. So us and the other SASSETAs where we have that issues, it does affect our completion targets. But in that aspect, what we have done, we do have a SASSETA forum that we actually attend. We do liaise with other SASSETAs. So if you have a project that's overlapping with another SASSETA, we can intervene. We do normally speak to the coordinators on that side, so we can actually fast track it. We do have a SASSETA CEO forum, which our CEO actually attends. So in that aspect, if you know that it's a other SASSETA program, when you're drawing up the contract, make that allowance for that verification process, because it's not internally SASSETA's verification where we got control over it. It's externally, so make that allowance in your contract. As also at the start of the project, let's try and get the coordinators from that side also on the team, so we know that when we're getting closer to verification, we know who to contact, and that communication is there. I think that will assist us a great deal. Okay, is there any other questions, or can I continue to the next presentation? Continue. Thank you. So, learner registration. We require all learners to be registered. Like I explained to you, we do have targets, annual targets. Our annual targets entail us entering learners on a specific program and completing with learners. So these forms are crucial in our responsibility to actually make sure we meet our targets. So the learner registration is crucial by the learner. So there is a portion in the form that has the declaration of the learner, which we are updating at the moment. So in that declaration, it's your responsibility to make sure that the learners, if they say they're employed, they fill in that declaration to say they're employed. If they're unemployed, they fill in the declaration to mention they're unemployed. And you as employers and training providers need to understand that if you're putting unemployed learners on the program, they need to be unemployed. You can't just get an employed person and put them under the unemployed program. So, because during audit they do check this, they do a CAT scan, and during that phase they would pick up all these issues that we face. Okay, on each document we'll need a certified ID copy, highest qualification, both not older than 6 months. So we need that in place. We need contract of employment only for unemployed learners. In very rare cases, we would ask for the employed learner contracts. But when we register learnerships, unemployed learnerships, we usually ask for employment contract for that duration. So if it is an employed learnership, then we would ask for it. Maybe the learner was absorbed. Then we'd need a contract of employment, so as to prove that the learner was absorbed after the program, after being unemployed. So we need to make sure that when they're completing the forms are accurately completed, the name and surname as per the ID is on the same form with the correct spellings. It becomes a problem where there's also change in surnames due to marital reasons or other reasons. We need to have that proof that this was the maiden surname, this is the new surname, those kind of proofs that you get from Home Affairs to make sure that's covered as well, because during the CAT scan they pick up different names, surnames and all of that. It looks like it's fictitious learners. So we do need that to be in place. They must select the correct program type on the form. So on the second page, there is a checklist of what you are, or a tick box of what you are enrolling for. So make sure they tick on the correct program that they're going to be enrolled for. It must be completed fully, signed by all parties, and all crucial information that's required must be listed on that form. So make sure it's fully complete. Because many a times we find ourselves where we get the forms and then we have to return it to you, and it becomes a back and forth, and then it's just tedious. Therefore, when we do our induction sessions, we urge the learners to fill in the forms at the induction sessions, so we have completed forms by the time we get to our office. So that actually assists us a great deal. So make sure that the learners sign, and the signature date of the program cannot be after the start of the program. So you're enrolling a person, you can't start after the program started. So make sure the dates are aligned, it's not clashing, and it is there. So in terms of the dates, make sure the provider also and the employer that needs to sign also align their dates. You can't have their dates with the discrepancies where the employer and provider signs way before the learner signs. The learner has to be present also to sign the agreement. No alterations will be allowed on the forms. You notice that we also return forms where there's alterations. I advise if you have alterations on the form, if you scratch out, you sign next to it and you initial and whatever, you write your contact details also if they need to contact you, that you made the change. But we advise against correction pens or Tipp-Ex. It's not at all needed. And we also say, please fill in the form with black pen. I think a lot of you do blue pens, but please, black pen is your legal color that you need to use on legal documents, so that would be fine. And so when we're completing with the learner, what we need is the confirmation of employment status. So at the beginning of the project, we will ask you for confirmation of employment status. At the end of the project, when we're closing, we'll also need to know your employment status. So we do have an email address where we would say employers and providers to send an email there if there's a status change for any learner at any time in the project. This is just our control measure to make sure that we entered the 20 unemployed learners, we completed with 20 unemployed learners. It's just a control measure that we would put in place. So in terms of bursaries, this is unemployed bursaries. We do advertise the unemployed bursaries, or we do the unemployed bursaries through universities, public universities, where they would apply for these bursaries. So the qualifying criteria, they must be youth below the age of 35, and they must be adhering to all those criteria that we set out in the award letter when we awarded. They must fill in the unemployed, it's a bursary agreement form that they would fill in. And also here we would also need the status of employment, as well as your highest qualification and ID. So on all our programs, highest qualification ID is a standard, as well as your employment status now, since we found that to be a problem. So also the qualifications must be written on the bursary agreement form, the details at the back. Some of you that do have bursaries with us, you know on the towards the end of the bursary agreement, we have a table there with all the details of the learner that needs to be populated on there. So with workers entering bursaries, it's the same process. We have a bursary form that they would fill in, and they must attach their proof of employment. And we don't, in this case, we don't have any restrictions for them. So they can be over the age of 35 because they are in the workforce already. So it's not a restriction in that sense, but we might say that we want bursaries for nurses. So it depends which sector it's going to and which sector it's directed at. So we might have those type of conditions on the award, but not towards age or race or anything like that. Okay, for completion, so bursaries, that was the entered. So now with the completions, what we need is statement of results or certificate. The statement of results or the certificate must contain the date the person completed the program. If it does not have the date the person completed the program, we can't use it as reporting. So we need to have that statement of results that confirm the date the qualification was completed, as well as the statement of results if possible. If not, then either or, it would be fine. Unemployed internships entered. So when there's internships, there's no training providers here. There's only the workplace. So you might have a lead employer and a host employer. So in this case, on our workplace learner forms, there is a space for a lead employer and a host employer. So you complete the details. So with internships, we also need to know where the learners' workplaces are, where they're going to be based, if they have the necessary tools of trade and all of that. When we're doing our monitoring, that's what we look for. Employment contracts for the intern and employer must be attached to the work-based learner form. Certified copies of ID, like I did mention previously, this is a constant field for IDs and highest qualifications. It has to be on all forms. And the declarations must be filled in here. Remember, work integrated learning, internships, TVET programs, UOTs, and candidacy is all unemployed programs. They all have to declare they're unemployed, and the confirmation must be sent by the employer. This is your TVET student placements. So in terms of this, we need learners who require practical training for that process. It's normally 18 months training or 18 months workplace experience that they need to do. These are where they've done the native courses and they need that. So we do have minimum period of 12 months for placements and 18 months placements. So this is also where you'd fill in the work-based learner agreement. You'll also need your ID and highest qualification. In this sense, it would be the N4, the N6. Then your candidacy, only for LLB graduates. It's for a minimum of 12 months. And I think there is a maximum of 24 months that we can fund, but this will be as per affordability with SASSETA. So we will decide whether we do have the funding to continue for 24 months, or we require people that's already got their PLT and they require only 12 months in the program. University of Technology placements. These learners are studying at the university. They need to complete their qualification. So part of their qualification requires them to have work integrated learning or back work during a period of time for them to qualify for the qualification that they are preparing for. So in this sense, it's only for University of Technologies that would apply, and it will be for students that's studying there. Maximum period is 6 months, minimum I think 2 months. And then proof of registration here is required, so we need to know that the learner is registered at the University of Technology, and that's for the work integrated learning during that time for them to actually qualify for that. So this is your work integrated learning completion. So this is generic for all the work integrated learning, like I've explained. We need service certificates, and that needs to state the program. So you can't do an internship and then you get a service certificate for a TVET placement. So make sure that you are doing the correct wording on there. I know some entities would call internships across the board instead of categorizing it, but SASSETA has internships, we have TVET placements, we have candidacy placements, and we have UOT placements. So all service certificates must be on the employer's letterhead. Prior to this, we used to have our template where we would give to the employers to say, this is the template for the certificate. We can still do that, give you the template of it that you can customize with your letterhead, so it makes things easier, but now we only want the ones that's issued by you. It should be dated and signed by the employer representative, and the work-based agreement must be valid at the time. So you see, in the beginning I did say about extensions and amendments to contracts. So when you extend and amend your contracts, make sure you're extending for all those learners in those contracts as well. I think we do have a standard clause on our amendments where we say that all learners linked to this contract will be automatically extended. So that will allow for this to be in place if the learner took more than 12 months or more than the period that's required for the program. So that will cover us in terms of when we report for this learner. Unemployed and employed entering learnerships. The contract of employment is very crucial here as well. Must be for 1 year and must correspond with the dates of the WFBL form. So remember I said with the learnerships, you need unemployed learners, you need a learner contract for that duration. So it's an employment contract for that time period. So in that, you would make sure that the time corresponds to the time and duration of the learnership. So it's that 1 year period, start on this date, end on that date. It must be aligned to your work-based learner agreement. So your contract as well as your WBL must be the same dates. The employment contract must clearly specify that the learner is on a learnership. So your employment contract can't say that this person is employed as a security officer in this company. It must say that the learner is employed to undergo a learnership for this period. Then that would be sufficient. The contract must be valid learnership, so it must be for a valid learnership. So whatever the training is specified on your award letter, make sure that it is for that learnership that's in place. Unemployed and employed learners entering learnerships. This is continued from the previous slide. It's the contract of employment that I did say, as well as, I think it's a duplication, sorry. Okay, unemployed and employed learners completing learnerships, we need the SPO2s. And here, for SETA, a copy of the completion certificate or statement of results. So the ETQA department requires the SPO2, so make sure you submit that when you're submitting for certification. In cases where there was an extension, I did mention that all learner agreements must accommodate all the learners in the program, and the completion dates must correspond to the duration of the program. So that will make sure it aligns. So the SPO2 can only be submitted after the verification process has been conducted. So with SASSETA verification, it's internally. You go through our ETQA department. I think it would work similarly with all other SETA. So you go via the quality assurance department where you request verification, and they will come and verify, and then they will do certification thereafter. So we need your SPO2s after the verification has been conducted. Only enrolled learners can be assessed. So if you find in the program we had 20 learners and maybe 15 is only enrolled, we can only do the verification for the 15 learners that's enrolled. And they can only be assessed. So you can't use those that dropped out halfway during the program to assess them. The copy of the completion certificate of results must be submitted, and they must correspond. So unemployed entering skills programs. So skills programs, I did mention earlier, it's a SPO1 form. It must be completed. In terms of the SPO1 forms, there's a start and end date of a program. We understand a skills program is a short program. You can find a skills program can be for 3 days, but your duration on that SPO1, please do not put 3 days if you're putting from the 1st of March to the 3rd of March. It makes no sense. It needs to be for that duration, it's including the notional hours that need to be done, everything, so it incorporates everything. So we have that valid and correct until the person actually completes. So make sure that that is done, and the signing, it is fully signed, fully completed, and on that form as well, we have a declaration where the learners will declare they're employed or unemployed. So that is very crucial as well. So for completing skills program, same procedure, you have a SPO2 that will be submitted. Learner can enter and complete in the same quarter. So with this program, because it's a shorter program, you can enter a skills program in April and you can finish in June. And we can enter you in April and complete with you in June. That's acceptable. Should the learner become employed during that period, that's a status change. I did explain to you earlier, when it's status changes, please inform us that this learner was entered as unemployed on the skills program, now he's employed. So we do the necessary paperwork and sort that out so we don't have any issues. The copy of the completion certificate or statement of results is required. And the same issue where there's extensions to the main contract, make sure it accommodates the extension for the completion. But like I said, it's a short program. We like to keep it short, so it has to be within that few months, or so we advise against extensions on these programs. Artisan entered, we have minimum duration is 3 years. We must have an assigned WBL form as well. They must choose the correct program type. So in this case, it will be apprenticeships, and then they would have the copies of their ID and qualifications and all that attached to the artisans entered. We find a lot of cases where we enter with artisans and they don't have the relevant N1 or N2 entrance requirement. So it's very important when recruiting the learners for the program, you understand that this is what they're going to enter with. And they do have that relevant, maybe they have an N2 level, that's when they will enter onto the artisan program. So make sure that's considered when you're doing your recruitment. Artisans completed, we would need all documents that's required by NEM, because we don't do the certification for artisans. It's the QCTO that does the certification. So what SASSETA does is when you have artisan program, you will submit all the documentation to us and we will do a submission to NEM. the national artisan body. So we would send to them for them to actually submit to QCTO for the preparation of the certificate or the printing of the certificate. So we'd advise that you, for the completion, you make sure you submit all the necessary documents, which is the learner ID copy, the trade test center's certificate of accreditation, the trade test results, or the end course certificate. So in terms of, there's also the other way in which you can enter artisan program through RPL also. So make sure the experience letter is also attached on there. So when we submit to them, then all the relevant documents are in place for them to actually do that printing within the 21 working days that they have to assist us with printing. ABET or AET learners, this is done closely with community colleges, the AET programs, as well as we do partner with some private security companies as well, but this is mainly through the CETs. We've made signed learner registration form, which is the SPO1 in this case, as well as your statement of results from a copy of the Umalusi certificate or statement of results for the assessment report. So that will be required at completion. So what I'm sure most of you have already know that we are in the process of changing over to new systems. We are trying to digitize our services. So in terms of learner management, currently we are on the solid road system where you are in DCM and you're populating the details of the learners. It's going through the various processes and then it's being done electronically in terms of submissions also as well. We are moving away from that, moving towards a new system, Microsoft 365. So on that platform, we are working with VisionWave at the moment, which is our the company that's assisting us in this changeover. But we will have training in that regard. So from the 1st of October, if you look at the slide, says that providers were able to capture their learners on the INDCM system. So at that point, you were already trained to capture learners onto the INDCM system for the registrations on the system. So what you would do is you'd capture, and our internal learner registration department will accept it or decline it, or they would do the necessary stuff on the system so it can be registered. You can, at the moment, it's still on INDCM, so if you haven't yet seen that system or done any registrations on there, you are more than welcome to send an email to registration so they can give you your username and password if you want to go into the system and register learners for the until we move on to our new system, which we anticipate next year April. So your scanned documents and supporting documents must be attached and updated for the learners to be enrolled on the system. So it's different from before, where we were accepting the hard copies where you'd attach all those documents and you'll bring it to our office and we'll be checking. Now it'll be on, it is on the system at the moment, so that's where you will upload it and we'll check on there. The requirements, like I said previously, highest qualification ID, also the original registration forms should be delivered in that sense, but with the new system we will advise whether we will still need that original forms, but that will be communicated as early as possible. Terminations and replacement process. This is very important. Also during the audit we found some learners that were not paid but were on the program and there was no terminations for those learners, and at that point we needed to request terminations. And also we found in some instances you'd find a learner is deceased and there was no communication that the learner is deceased, and then you only find out when it's later on in the project or when it's due to the next milestone payment. So make sure that as soon as a learner needs to be terminated on the system for various reasons, let us know within 7 days of the occurrence. So we know that this learner was on the program, the person died maybe 2 weeks ago, and then you just inform us, at least at the onset. So we tell you what documentation we require from you, so we can make the amendment on the system. We don't wait until Auditor General comes in and says you've got 5 deceased learners on the system, and then we only pick it up then. So therefore we are trying to encourage you to actively communicate with your project administrators, your project coordinators from our side, and make sure that communication bridge is there so we don't lose out on or get to know details later on in the program. So with terminations and replacements, very important that you have to ask us for permission to replace a learner. So terminations is fine if they dropped out. We give you a termination form at the beginning of the project with the templates, and you will terminate the learner. You'll give us your reason as to why you're terminating, and then we will submit that for termination. When it comes to replacements, you can't replace a learner 7 months down the line. The program already started. We say that your replacements must be allowed only in the first 2 months. I think the 2-month period is just so you can have that learner catch up to the rest of them, which makes more reasonable sense to have it within the first 2 months and not 7 months down the line. That's going to delay the project. The learner is far behind. It's not going to work out. So in that respect, please let us know that we started the program in January, and then in February I want to replace 2 learners. You need to send us a request. We approve the request, and then the learner is registered. So currently what challenge we're facing is because we have QCTO and we have the new changeover with the qualifications and them being expired. We find a lot of providers replace learners, but we can't enroll them now because the qualification is expired. And you'll find that they already started training those learners. We won't be able to certify those learners. So that becomes a challenge on our side. So it's very important that you alert us of any change in terms of replacements and terminations. You must provide the termination forms to SASSETA within 5 days of such termination. And then the learner list must be updated. So when we audit it as well, we keep a project file. In the project file, we keep updated learner lists. So if you've changed your learner list from 100 to 95, you need to send us an updated list of 95, signed, dated, and we file that. So we have track of what was happening in the project. Replacements of learners must be approved, like I said, and together with if you're replacing within that 2-month period, give us a catch-up plan also. Because your catch-up plan needs to show that these 5 was replaced. This is how I'm going to get them on track with the rest, so it'll be in line with the project and finish on time. And then if the learners are replaced without notifying us, we will not cover you for that learner. So payment will not be considered for those learners because you failed to inform us. That's why I say very important is your project inception meeting. To get all of these correct, you have to make sure your project inception meeting is concrete. So you lay the foundation to make sure that everything you need during the project is there and you don't have any concerns or issues. Okay, and then for capturing access, I did mention this before, and then there's the email for the learner status update. So if you have a learner that changed their status from employed to unemployed or the other way around, please let us know. So you send an email to this mailbox and we will do that. Also, when you're sending mails, please copy your project administrator and your project practitioner if you know who they are. But after the session, I'm sure all of you will know who you're dealing with and their relative contact details. So that will assist you a great deal. So in terms of the new system, I'm just going to talk briefly about it. It is a Microsoft platform that we're going to be using. I think some of the other SETAs already implemented the system a year or 2 ago, and SASSETA is joining in. We are hoping for a more integrated approach, something that will be able to assist us in reducing our paperwork, also the paper in SASSETA. So the contract module, where you're going to be doing your signing of your contract, also we want to digitize the contract signing module. So you have track of all the amendments you make and then until the final sign off. And we track your project milestones like that. And you will be given a dashboard where you can view your project, how far it's running. You'll be getting notifications that your milestone is due or these documents are outstanding. So it'll be giving you constant notifications. It'll notify your administrator, your practitioner, me as the manager, so I know what's happening at each point in the project. It's also integrated with the learner management system, so when you enter your learners on there, It will allow us to view the documents and accept or reject. If we reject, it comes back to you. It tells you what our comments are. So we're trying to get a digitized solution to actually integrate. We are looking into, at the moment, the payment one is not yet confirmed, but we're trying to integrate that to the payment as well. So you are able to view everything. So that will give us a more holistic approach and a step in the right direction to getting the projects on track and making sure that we're not delaying in any other areas. Okay, but we will do training sessions, we will do workshops like this where we will present the system and we will take your comments and we will show you how to use the system. We'll have training sessions. So that will be done before we actually launch. So I think just to inform you and keep you in the know, that's coming, and that's going to make everyone's life much more easier with paper. Okay, so that's it from my presentations.